All right, Mod 5, Lesson 18. Today's lesson objective, we're going to draw rectangles and rhombuses to clarify their attributes and define rectangles and rhombuses based on those attributes. Once again, think about how when we get in class tomorrow, when we're drawing rectangles and rhombuses, how that's going to help you clarify and define their attributes. Now, once again, we're still doing MAFS 5G23, which is understand the attributes belonging to a category of two-dimensional figures, also belong to all subcategories of that category. In other words, just like we saw yesterday, a parallelogram was also a trapezoid, which is also a quadrilateral, which is also a polygon. So all those are subcategories. All right, let's take a look at our definitions. First one is a rectangle. And a rectangle is a quadrilateral with two sets of parallel sides, four right angles, and opposite angles are congruent. Congruent, a new word. Congruent means equal, okay? Once again, like yesterday, we have these little marks. And let me get my pen here. We have these, let me find it. Where is it? There it is. All right. So we can see opposite sides are equal because we know in a rectangle we have opposite sides and they're not usually the same shape. Now, one thing we do have in a rectangle is it has to have four right angles. And right angles, how many degrees? If you said 90, that's correct. So each one of these is a 90-degree angle. And they have to be 90-degree in order for this to be a rectangle. So two sets of parallel sides and four right angles. That's what makes it a rectangle. Now let's see how this changes when we go to a rhombus. Okay, so here we have a rhombus. And a rhombus is a quadrilateral, means a four-sided polygon with two sets of parallel sides, four congruent equal sides, and opposite angles are congruent, which means equal. Now notice when we were talking about a rectangle, it said we had two sets of parallel sides, but it didn't have four equal sides. It had opposite sides were equal. Well, in a rhombus, you can tell by these lines right here, all four sides stay exactly the same length, okay? And it shows you opposite angles. So this angle right here, this obtuse angle, is exactly the same as this obtuse angle. And this angle here on the bottom is going to be equal or congruent to the top one. So those angles will always stay the same. Now, another thing that's really unique about a rhombus, you see them dashed lines. If you were to go from vertice on top to the vertice on bottom, and the vertice from left to vertice right, it's going to make a right angle right into the center. And that's going to help you in 6th grade because now we can solve for the area for this pretty easy because we actually have four right angle triangles now. But we're not going to be dealing that, but that's just something in the future you'll be able to use. All right, let's see how this works. All right, so let's look at this interactive one. Now, before we start it, let's take a look. We can see that here we have four sides that are equal, okay, in length, and opposite angles are equal, okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and start the video. Let's watch it. As it moves around, pay attention to those angles. All right, so now we're going to be moving it around. And we want to see if those angles stay equal as we move the rhombus. Now remember, the opposite sides are going to stay parallel. Now here we go. We're starting to move it. So now as I move this in, you can see the two obtuse angles are equal and the two acute angles are equal. No matter how I move it, it still remains where opposite angles are equal. Okay? And that's what's very unique about a rhombus. All opposite angles always stay equal no matter how you maneuver it because opposite sides stay parallel. Okay? Now let's take a look at this flow chart. We got two of them to put in here this time. First thing, let's start with a rectangle. Now, we know a rectangle is a quadrilateral. it has at least one set of parallel sides, so it can be classified as a trapezoid. And if we look at the parallelogram, it has two sets of parallel sides, so it isn't a rectangle. And opposite angles are equal. Well, in a rectangle, opposite sides are equal, and opposite sides are equal. Oh, so we could actually say a rectangle is also a parallelogram. But it's more stringent. Not all parallelograms can be rectangles, because not all parallelograms have 4 right angles. Okay? So that's what keeps all parallelograms from being a rectangle. But all rectangles are parallelograms. Okay? Because they meet the attributes for a parallelogram. Now let's think about a rhombus. Am I going to stick the rhombus underneath the rectangle? Well, think about it. A rectangle meets everything that a parallelogram does. But does a rhombus have 4 right angles? It could. It could. But that would all rhombuses be rectangles? No, I don't think so. Okay. So we'll have to put our rhombus over here. Okay. So a rhombus has all sides equal, opposite angles are equal. And that means that all rhombuses are still classified as parallelograms because they have 2 sets of parallel sides, opposite angles are equal, and opposite sides are equal. Okay? But just like I said a minute ago, you can't all rhombuses can't be rectangles. Okay? Because all rhombuses would not have 4 right angles. Okay? All right. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll be drawing these.